Interfaces do not contain any programming logic, but simply define a minimum set of properties and methods that a class must contain. In addition, classes may also contain properties and methods that are not specified in the interface. In this lesson, you'll implement the iDisposable interface in one of your own classes. The iDisposable interface is part of the .NET framework. To begin, open the Market Trader project from your Sample Files folder. This is a relatively simple web application that is used to display stock market data. Now open dataaccess.cs. This class is used for all database queries in the project. Notice that this class contains an instance of the Market Trader Data Context class, which is a link data context. This object could use a lot of memory, so you should dispose of any instances of this class when they are no longer needed. Now open the code behind file of marketdata.aspx. The button getData click event handler uses an instance of the dataaccess class, but doesn't dispose of it properly. In Essential Skills Session 6, you learned that best practice to ensure that objects are quickly disposed of is to wrap the code in a using statement. The using statement works by calling the object's dispose method. Add a using statement now to automatically dispose of the data class object. First, make the first line of code into a using statement as follows: using dataaccess data class equals new dataaccess, and then add curly brackets so that the rest of the event handler's code is contained inside the using statement. Now attempt to build the project. An error appears in the error list window. MarketTrader.DataAccess type used in a using statement must be implicitly convertible to system.iDisposable. The iDisposable interface actually defines a single method called dispose. The error message is thus a roundabout way of saying the dataaccess class does not contain a dispose method. Return to dataaccess.cs now, and you're now going to make the class implement the iDisposable interface. You could simply include the dispose method and the code would compile without errors, but it is best practice to explicitly implement the iDisposable interface. Implementing interfaces is done in exactly the same way as extending classes. Change the code that starts the class to public class dataaccess : iDisposable. The dataaccess class now implements the iDisposable interface. In Lesson 4.12, you learned how objects that extend classes can impersonate and be converted into the base classes that they extend. In a similar way, an interface can be regarded as the base class of any class that implements it. This may sound a little confusing at first, because you may be thinking that an interface is an entirely different construct to a class. In reality, an interface can be thought of as a class that only contains abstract methods and properties. Because a class that implements an interface extends the interface's base class, it should be clear that you can convert an object to the same type as any interface that it implements. For example, any class that implements the iDisposable interface can be converted into an iDisposable object. This technique is extremely useful when you need to create a collection containing different objects that all implement the same interface. Note that you can implement more than one interface in a class by simply separating the interfaces with commas. For example, I could add the iDataSource interface to this class by simply adding, comma, iDataSource. You can use the same syntax to create an extended class that extends more than one other class. For example, public class cat, mammal, feline creates a single cat class that includes all of the properties and methods in the mammal and feline classes. It's even possible for a class to both extend classes and implement interfaces using this technique. For example, I could add the iDisposable and iDataSource interfaces to the cat class by simply adding, comma, iDisposable, comma, iDataSource. Extending and implementing multiple classes and interfaces can quickly get confusing. In these cases, it can be helpful to use Class View or the Object Browser. You'll learn about these in Lesson 4:17. Now attempt to build the project again. Another error appears in the error list window. MarketTrader.DataAccess does not implement interface member system.idisposable.dispose. To implement the interface, the class must contain the methods defined by the interface. In other words, the class must have a dispose method. Add a dispose method to the class using the following code. Public void dispose data dot dispose. Now attempt to build the project again. This time the project builds without any problems. Now let's test your code. View marketdata.aspx in your web browser and click Get Data. The data is successfully returned from the database. The code is now more memory efficient as it will dispose of the data access object after retrieving the data. Close your web browser now and close Visual Studio. You've now completed Lesson 4:15. Implement an interface.